Okay, 3.4, reasoning and geometry. Complementary angles are two angles, okay, that add to be what? 90 degrees. If they're complementary, they add to be 90. So two angles that add to be 90 degrees. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common side and a vertex. So on complementary angles, they don't have to like touch or share. I just have to have two angles that add to be 90. So one could be 30, right? And the other could be 60. They add to 90. Those are complementary angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common side and a vertex. So these are adjacent angles, okay? This angle is adjacent to this angle over here. They share the vertex and they share a common side, okay? I can also do adjacent angles this way. Those are two adjacent angles, okay? There are lots of ways I can draw adjacent angles. The point is that they share a vertex and they share a common side. Okay. Supplementary angles are two angles that sum to 180 degrees. So supplementary add to be 180. So I could have it this way, and these two angles would add to be 180. Okay? This acute angle and this obtuse angle. Or I could have it where they don't touch at all, and one is, I don't know, 80 degrees, and one could be 100 degrees. Those add to 180, okay? So complementary add to 90. Adjacent are two angles that share a common side and a vertex, and supplementary add to 180. Vertical angles, okay? Vertical angles are a pair of angles opposite from one another formed by two intersecting lines. So if I have two lines that intersect like these, vertical angles, this angle and this angle are vertical to each other. Okay? This angle and this angle are vertical to each other. Opposites, okay, are vertical to each other. So you have complementary, add to be 90, adjacent, share a common side and a common vertex. Supplementary, add to be 180, and vertical angles are opposite angles are formed, a pair of angles opposite from one another formed by two intersecting lines. And vertical angles are always congruent, which will help us out in a minute. Okay, so vertical angles are always congruent. And if they're congruent, that means they're equal, which means I can start to solve some things. Okay, so we're going to just jump in and do a bunch of proofs. I have 10 slides on this, but most of them are proofs, just so you know. Okay, so it says prove the measure of angle ABC equals 18 degrees. How can I start this? I'm just going to put an S for statements and R for reasons so that you know. What do I need to start with? What? I can rewrite the statement that it's given. Correct. So I can say, no, I want to prove that the measure of angle ABC equals 18 degrees. So it's not a given. That's what I'm trying to prove. So my given is going to come from my picture. So yes.
The measure of angle EBD plus measure of angle DBC plus measure.
Okay, that's good. So we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Okay. What do I know? We'll get there in a second. I like that idea. But on that picture, do I know one of the angles automatically?
Yes.
What? I know the 90-degree angle. So that is my given. Okay? Because it has that box there, it tells me it's 90 degrees. So I can say angle DBE equals 90 degrees given. Okay? That's my given. What else do I automatically know then? What other angle do I know? You know that DBA is what? Why is DBA 90 degrees? Okay.
And then went to
Oh,
DBA.
What do you know about two angles? First of all, you know that EBA is what? How many degrees? 180. So if DBE is 90, then it's common sense that DBA is 90 also. Okay? But I can't just say like common sense. That doesn't work. Okay? One of the definitions I just went over with you tells me something. What?
Did you say?
Maybe.
Supplementary angles?
Yes, supplementary angles. So supplementary angles add to be what? 180. So I can say the angle of DBA equals 90 because of supplementary angles. Okay? Now, from there, I'm trying to prove that angle ABC is 18 degrees. So from there, what do you think I need to focus on? What would I focus on? If I've already established,
DBA.
you want me to focus on DBA. That's a good idea. Let's focus on DBA because that's where ABC is part of, okay? So what does DBA equal? 90, but what else does it equal?
4x plus.
Okay, kind of. It does equals 4x plus x, but I've got to state that in angle terms before I can substitute 4x and x in there.
The measure equal to DBA plus the measure of
Yes.
CBA.
So the measure of angle DBA equals the measure of angle DBC plus the measure of angle CBA. What is that when I take an angle and an angle, add them together to get the other angle? Angle addition postulate. So angle addition postulate. Okay? Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see that you have to do every step that we talked about? Now, from there, Faith, what can I do?
So,
We're going to get to substitution, yes. But I haven't stated what this angle or this angle are equal to yet, have I? So because I haven't stated that yet, I can't substitute anything in yet. Okay? So I'm going to come back and say, the measure of angle DBC is what? What is the measure of angle DBC? 4x, okay? What is the measure of angle CBA? And how do I know that? It's given. So technically, I discovered another given down here. It's okay. It's okay if givens aren't all together. You can put a given in later, but you have to start with at least one of them. Okay? Now from there, what am I going to do? Substitute. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say 90 degrees equals 4x plus x, because I can do substitution. Then from there, what are you going to do? Combine like terms. So 90 equals 5x. I can just say simplify. And then you divide by 5, so x equals what? 15? Is that no? Yes? 18. 18? So x equals 18, and that was division. We can just say that. Okay? That is a proof. Okay? How do you feel about that?
It was easier when we
Talk it out?
yeah.
Yes, it will. It will get easier for you individually too as you do more, okay? But yeah, we'll keep talking some of these out and working them. So in class, work them out together too, okay? We're gonna go to the next one. measure of angle A is 4 times the measure of angle B. Prove the measure of angle D equals 36 degrees. Oh, I need to draw this in for you too, because I can't get this to work. You know that these are congruent. Okay. So you want to start with the statement, right? And then we have reasons. Okay. Measure of angle A is 4 times the measure of angle B. We want to get to the fact that the measure of angle D equals 36 degrees. Okay? What can we start with? This you're going to have to think a little bit off the picture. What else? They're what?
They're like D and.
Yes, they are vertical angles. That's good. That's going to come into play later. What? A and C are congruent, D and B are congruent because they're vertical angles. That's all good stuff. But look at this here. We know that A is 4 times the measure of B, right? So if we named BX just for the heck of it, this would be 4x, correct? Okay. What do you see about these two angles right here? What are they on?
A straight
A
line.
180 degree line. Whoa. Now I can start to work with stuff if you can recognize that from the beginning. So those two angles are what type of angles? Do they share a common vertex? Do they share a same side?
Yes.
Yes, so what are those angles considered?
Adjacent.
Adjacent angles. And adjacent angles, okay, share the same side and share a common angle. They're also, what other type of angle are they if they're both sitting on something that equals 180? Supplementary, okay? So, my given statement is a lot of what I've deduced from that picture, okay? Because they don't give me as stuff, you have to visualize and see it. So I can say the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B, okay, equals 180 degrees. I can make that equation off the bat because I know they are what type of angles? Supplementary. Okay, because they're supplementary, okay? That is my given, because I looked at it from my picture. So it's supplementary slash it's also my given information. So remember, the given can come off of a picture and it doesn't have to say given, start here, okay? So that is my supplementary slash my given. Now, from there, what can I do?
Substitution.
So A is 4x and
Yeah, I can substitute stuff in. So what I need to do the first, yeah, I can do it that way. So I need to say 4x plus x equals 180, right? Substitution. Then from there, what do I need to do?
Combine the terms.
Combine like terms, so you get 5x equals 180. So simplify. Then from there you do what?
Divide.
And x would equal, how many times does 5 go into 180? Not 90. 5 goes into 18 3 times, giving you 15, right? And then a remainder of 3, so 36. So x equals 36. And this was division, but in your book, like I said, they're gonna always say multiplication, property of equality. Okay. And they want us to prove that the measure of angle D is 36. Well, I'm not done yet, okay? But how can I prove that the measure of angle D is 36 from here?
They're adjacent. Vertical.
I'm gonna say what?
They're vertical
you're going to do, what do you know from your picture?
B and D are vertical angles.
B and D are what?
Vertical angles.
Vertical angles,
Which means they're complementary.
which means they're complementary.
Which means they're
No, not complementary, they're
Not
vertical angles,
adjacent.
which means they're congruent, okay? And if they're congruent, that means they're equal. Well, B is what? Just X, just 36, right? Okay, so I have to show that I understand that. You have to say, okay, the measure of angle B is 36 because I subbed it in. And then you have to say the measure of angle B equals the measure of angle D because they are vertical angles. Okay, which means the measure of angle D equals 36 substitution. Now, that probably seems like a lot of useless information, but that's what they want you to do, and that's how you have to do them. Okay, so you're going back and forth a lot, back and forth a lot, back and forth a lot. Questions on that proof? Good, we have more. Oh, we have segment addition postulate, congruent supplements theorem. Okay, these are postulates and theorems you're gonna have memorized. Segment addition we've done before, right? This small piece plus this small piece equals the whole piece of my segment addition. The congruent supplements theorem says this, and tell me what form this is in, Carly. If two angles are supplementary to the same angle, then they are congruent. What type of statement is that? I don't know, what type of statement is that? Conditional, converse, blah, blah, blah. If two angles are supplementary to the same angle, then they are congruent. Conditional. So all theorems, most theorems I should say, are going to be written in conditional statements or in converses of the conditional statement. We're going to have a few theorems that are converses of other theorems. Okay? That's why we have to know conditional and converse statements. So congruent supplements theorem says if two angles are supplementary to the same angle, then they are congruent. So this is what it means. Angle A and B are supplementary, yes? Okay? But B and C are also supplementary. They add to be 180 as well, which means A and C are now congruent. Because B doesn't change in there, so A and C are now congruent. So I can conclude from things and from pictures congruent angles off of if things are supplementary, okay, and how they relate. Okay, this one says congruent complements theorem. If two angles are complementary meaning how many degrees? 90 degrees, okay? If angles are complementary to the same angle, then they are congruent. So, angle A, you see how this picture has angle A and B together and they're 90 degrees? But then it also has another angle written off of here, angle BC, and they're 90 degrees, yes? So what it's saying is angle A is congruent to angle C, because once again, B doesn't change, okay? Linear pair postulate. If two angles form a linear pair is how many degrees? What's a linear? What? 180, linear, okay? So this whole thing has to be 180, okay? 180 degrees. Okay, linear pair. If two angles form a linear pair, then their measures sum to 180. So angle A plus angle B equals 180. I've created an equation for myself so I can do some stuff on, on proofs. Okay, I can have some equations there. Vertical angles theorem. If two angles are pairs of vertical angles, then they are congruent, which we discussed already earlier. So angle A and angle C are congruent, angle D and angle B are congruent. Okay? Vertical angles theorem. These are all on your Power School stuff. They're also all under that amsco.com website. If you go You can print just this whole page off, okay, of all of these postulates and theorems. So the key here is to know your terms. You have to know that complementary is 90. You have to know that supplementary is 180. You have to know that vertical angles are congruent, okay? And you have to know that anytime there's a line, all those angles can add up to equal 180 on it, which is beautiful because I can start some work from there. Okay, properties of equality and congruency. There's something called the transitive property, okay? These you also have to memorize because we're going to use these a lot. Transitive property looks like this. If A equals B, then B equals C. Okay, if A equals B and if B equals C, then A equals C. What happens is this. Do you notice how these are the same in the middle? Okay, if the middle statements, okay, the end of one statement, the beginning of the other statement are the same, you can drop them and just combine the first and last of the first statement and the second statement. Like Carly did on her homework last night. Okay, with the sentences that she created, this is what she was doing, the transitive property. So, you could say something like this. Okay, if, we're going to do this with angles, if if segment AB is congruent to segment, oops, I won't touch that, is congruent to segment BC, okay? If segment AB is congruent to segment BC, and segment BC is congruent to segment CD, okay, then I know that AB equals CD. That is the transitive property, display. So because I know because I know AB is congruent to BC and BC is congruent to CD, then I know that AB and CD are equal. Okay? Because this is equal to the same thing that this is equal to. Does that make sense? Kind of like common sense, I feel like. I feel like transitive is pretty easy. Okay? Then you have the symmetric property. The symmetric property says AB, and if A equals B, B equals A. Okay? Symmetric property, you've seen symmetric property before. Okay? So you've seen this said before. And you do it in algebra a lot. If AB equals BC, then you can rewrite it to say BC equals AB. Okay, symmetric property, right? It doesn't matter because they're still set equal to each other. Okay, so if one angle that is 90 degrees equals, like if angle A equals 90 degrees, then I can switch it around. If A equals B, B equals A. Okay, symmetric property. That's a pretty easy one. Reflexive property. You guys know the reflexive property, right? Of addition and multiplication. The reflexive property of addition is anything added to 0 equals itself. Of multiplication, anything added to, or anything multiplied by 1 equals itself. Reflexive is my favorite one to remember because I always say, just look in a mirror and you are who you are.
That's so good.
You're not gonna change, right, when you look in the mirror? You're who you are. Okay, so reflexive property says if AB, that AB will equal AB, or the measure of angle A equals the measure of angle A. That's not going to change. It reflects and it's equal to itself, which is important because when we get to proofs where you have several angles going on, you might have to prove that an angle equals itself because it's repeated in a different picture. Okay, we'll get to that. Here's one more proof. Okay, prove the measure of angle A equals the measure of angle C. Okay, measure of angle A equals the measure of angle C. So let's start with our statements and let's start with our results. What do you know by that picture right there? What can you conclude off the picture? Tell me everything you can get off that picture. Okay, what?
They are
They are vertical angles, that's a way to look at it, good, they're vertical angles, what else?
angle A is the
Why are angle A and angle C the same? There's two ways we could get there. You said they're vertical angles, you say they're the same, which is true. They're not adjacent, they're adjacent both to what angle? To B. Okay? So in order to prove that they're vertical angles, which is where we basically want to get, because we want to get that they're equal to each other. To prove that, we need to start by comparing A and B to B and C. Okay? A and B are on what here? A 180 line, yes? So I can say the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B equals 180. And I'm going to say that because of what? What rule? They're supplementary. Okay? It's also basically a given because you can see it in the picture. Okay? What do you notice about this here? B and C also what? Are supplementary. So the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C equals 180 degrees because they too are supplementary slash given. Okay. Good. Now, what can I do from there? I have two equations, right? What can I do from there? There are several ways you could take this one. I'm just throwing out a couple examples. There are several ways you can look at this. Question for you. Could I substitute this equation in for 180 there?
Yes,
Why?
because
Oh. That, yes, you're onto something. Okay, here's why. And I know it doesn't look the order we just talked about, but A, B, B, C, transitive property. These are the same. So I can eliminate that and substitute the other thing in. So you could say transitive property, or you could say substitution there, I don't care which one. Like I said, proofs have different methods of going about them. It kind of depends how you look at them. So if I say the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B equals the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C, I could have said substitution there, or I could say transitive property. Either is acceptable, okay? Substitution or transitive. Okay? From there, what do you do to solve this type of equation? Yeah, subtract B from both sides, right? So you get the measure of angle A equals the measure of angle C. And you did subtraction, right? Which I told you in your book is going to be called addition property of equality. And now you've solved that proof. Okay? And there was no numbers really involved, except for that I could use the supplemental definition or supplemental theorem, because I know that those two equal. Okay? So sometimes there's not a definite answer, not a definite number. Zip this time together. Okay. Angles Z and P are supplementary angles on a line. Angles Z and N are vertical angles. The measure, that means that angles P and N are what? Z and P are supplementary. What does that mean they add to? 180. What do Z and N add? Well, Z and N are vertical, which means they are what? Congruent. So what would P and N be then?
vertical angles. I just guessed. But none of the above.
It is something above. If Z and P, Z plus P equals 180, right? Oh no, your homework's gonna be on But we'll do more of it tomorrow on this too.
Everyone's phone.
Maria, I'm taking yours.
My mom, yesterday got some busted tea cookies and I forgot to pack them in my lunch and I'm really sad now.
She's like, yes, busted cookies. Oh, the tea ones?
Yes,
Those were the best.
I know, right? I walked into the car and said I got a surprise for you.
Okay, perfect.
It was the crystal. It was the best surprise.
We have a quiz. You guys are gonna need separate paper.
Why is my table wet?
Probably because somebody had a water bottle there.
Yes or no, go.